Dawn breaks quietly over the Caribbean Sea. The horizon glows pale gold, and the water lies calm and glass-like, disturbed only by the steady movement of the world's most advanced aircraft carrier, the USS Gerald R. Ford. The ship moves with the confidence of a floating fortress, its presence unmistakable and undeniable. For a moment, everything feels routine. Sailors perform their morning duties, the ocean breeze rolls across the flight deck, and the ship cuts through the waves like a silent giant. Then, without warning, something changes. Two fast-moving aircraft appear as distant specks against the morning sky. They are flying low, closing the distance quickly. No radio call. No identificación. No courtesy. Instantly, the atmosphere shifts from calm readiness to alert tension. These jets aren't friendly. Sailors stop what they're doing and look to the sky. The roar of engines grows louder and sharper, cutting through the quiet like a warning. Heat distortions shimmer in the air as the aircraft descend, now clearly identifiable as Venezuelan K-8W attack jets. They streak across the carrier's bow at barely 2,000 feet, performing a low pass designed to intimidate. The maneuver is deliberate, fast, aggressive, and undeniably hostile. From the bridge, the commanding officer watches through binoculars with calm precision. No panique, no shouting. Maintain course, he orders. The Ford does not turn. It does not accelerate. It does not flinch. One Venezuelan jet climbs sharply, afterburners blazing like a flare against the rising sun. The second follows, banking so close that its wings seem to slice the air above the ocean. The message is clear. This is a challenge. But intimidation only works if the other side reacts. And the United States Navy does not react to theatrics. Inside the ship, the Combat Information Center was already monitoring the situation. Operators watched FLIR and radar displays, confirming a critical detail. The Venezuelan aircraft carried no visible weapons. This was not an attack. It was a demonstration, a political gesture in the form of military aviation. Still, at sea, even symbolic actions carry risk. A single mistake, a misread maneuver, or a delayed response can turn a flyby into an international crisis. At 6:21 a.m., the Venezuelan jets began turning back toward their coastline. For a brief moment, it appeared the encounter had ended. But only 2 minutes later, radar screens told a different story. A second formation appeared, two more K-8W aircraft, climbing fast and heading directly toward the carrier strike group. Four jets now approached the Ford at increasing speed, without radio contact, without proper identification, and without maintaining internationally recognized safety distances. The operations watch officer verified the radar signatures and confirmed no response to radio hails. Above deck, the response was orderly and measured. Two F divided by a -18 Super Hornets were prepared for launch. The flight deck crew moved with precision, signaling, securing, and arming what they needed without urgency or hesitation. When the catapult fired, the first Hornet accelerated off the deck in a blur of sound and vapor, followed seconds later by the second. Their mission was clear: intercept, identify, and de-escalate if possible. From the air, the Hornets climbed through 15,000 feet and began closing the distance. The pilots established visual confirmation of the Venezuelan jets and monitored their formation and behavior. Rules of engagement remained defensive. Weapons stayed cold. Below them, the USS Gerald R. Ford appeared as a small shape on the ocean surface, escorted by destroyers maintaining a structured formation. The carrier's sophisticated radar systems tracked every aircraft in the Sky W. At approximately 15,000 feet, the U.S. strike package achieved visual and radar contact. For Venezuelan K-8W aircraft were confirmed operating in close formation. Their altitude and airspeed indicated intentional approach, not transit. Communication protocols were initiated. The lead U.S. pilot issued a standard identification request and advisement that the Venezuelan formation was approaching a U.S. carrier group operating in international airspace. The response from the opposing aircraft was delayed and non-compliant. when transmission did occur, it included an assertion that the U.S. carrier group was violating Venezuelan territorial airspace. This claim did not match navigational data. The carrier group location remained well outside recognized territorial boundaries, as the Venezuelan aircraft crossed ahead of the U.S. fighters at close range. Onboard systems flagged proximity alerts. Despite hazardous spacing, no missiles or external ordnance were visually identified on the K-8W hardpoints. The maneuver appeared intended to provoke a reaction rather than escalate to kinetic action. From a carrier, radar operators monitored the encounter while escort vessels adjusted positions. The destroyers USS Mason and USS Thomas Hunter tightened the defensive perimeter, forming a barrier ahead of the strike group. Electronic warfare systems were activated in a passive mode, providing limited signal disruption without locking or targeting. The USS Gerald R. Ford maintained course and speed. There was no attempt to evade, reposition, or respond aggressively. Protocol dictated that U.S. naval assets display control posture unless a verified threat required escalation. At this stage, the encounter remained classified as unsafe and unprofessional, but not hostile. All actions taken aboard U.S. platforms remained within defensive rules of engagement, with an emphasis on observation, recording, and deterrence rather than confrontation. At 6:32 a.m., the situation escalated. The Venezuelan formation shifted altitude and heading, closing within 5 nautical miles of the carrier group. One aircraft executed a low-altitude, high-speed approach directly over the bow of the destroyer USS Mason. The maneuver produced wake turbulence and was classified as a near miss due to insufficient separation and lack of radio coordination. Automated ship defenses reacted accordingly. Onboard close-in weapon systems, including the Phalanx CIWS, transitioned to tracking mode. The system maintained firing readiness but did not engage, in compliance with restrictive rules of engagement. Operators confirmed no radar lock was applied to the incoming aircraft. In the air, the U.S. F-divided by a -18E fighters maintained positional discipline. They shadowed the Venezuelan jets without matching aggressive maneuvers. No radar illumination or missile preparation was conducted. The objective remained monitoring, documentation, and de-escalation. The Venezuelan aircraft repeated a second unsafe proximity pass, reducing distance to approximately 600 feet from U.S. assets. Throughout the maneuver, U.S. aircraft and naval platforms continued to record telemetry, radar emissions, and flight profiles for intelligence analysis. After approximately 10 seconds of close interaction, the Venezuelan formation broke pattern and initiated a withdrawal southward. One aircraft lingered temporarily at approximately 9,000 feet before also turning away from the area. Shortly afterward, radar systems detected a brief targeting radar pulse directed at the Ford strike group. The signal was logged as intentional but did not persist. No response was issued. Once the aircraft departed the area and radar contact was lost, the strike group maintained heading and operational posture. At no point during the event did the carrier alter course or speed. By 6:37 a.m., radar operators confirmed all Venezuelan aircraft were exiting the operational area. No additional contacts or supporting assets were detected. The carrier strike group returned to routine operational posture, and the launched U.S. aircraft transitioned to standard patrol patterns before eventually recovering aboard the USS Gerald R. Ford. Intelligence and operations teams compiled all recorded data, including radar tracks, infrared footage, electronic emissions, and communication logs. The event was officially classified as an unsafe intercept conducted by a foreign military within international airspace. Preliminary analysis indicated the encounter was intended as a demonstration rather than preparation for conflict. Approximately 1 hour after the incident, Venezuelan state media broadcast video footage of the aircraft operating near the carrier group. The broadcast claimed that Venezuelan forces had forced a U.S. warship to withdraw from contested waters. This assertion did not correspond with GPS track logs or U.S. Navy navigational records. The strike group maintained course throughout the event. In Washington, analysts reviewed the compiled material. The assessment concluded that the Venezuelan actions were politically motivated and designed for domestic messaging rather than operational testing or hostile intent. However, analysts noted increased unpredictability in regional military conduct and recommended continued monitoring. No injuries occurred, no ordnance was deployed, and no weapons systems progressed beyond tracking posture. Despite the lack of physical confrontation, the event served as a reminder of the narrow margin separating routine intercepts from escalation. The carrier strike group continued operations without deviation, and the incident was formally recorded as part of ongoing regional security tracking and readiness evaluation. By 6:37 a.m., radar operators confirmed all Venezuelan aircraft were exiting the operational area. No additional contacts or supporting assets were detected. The carrier strike group returned to routine operational posture, and a launched U.S. aircraft transitioned to standard patrol patterns before eventually recovering aboard the USS Gerald R. Ford. Intelligence and operations teams compiled all recorded data, including radar tracks, infrared footage, electronic emissions, and communication logs. The event was officially classified as an unsafe intercept conducted by a foreign military within international airspace. Preliminary analysis indicated the encounter was intended as a demonstration rather than preparation for conflict. Approximately 1 hour after the incident, Venezuelan state media broadcast video footage of the aircraft operating near the carrier group. The broadcast claimed that Venezuelan forces had forced a U.S. warship to withdraw from contested waters. This assertion did not correspond with GPS track logs or U.S. Navy navigational records. The strike group maintained course throughout the event. In Washington, analysts reviewed the compiled material. The assessment concluded that the Venezuelan actions were politically motivated and designed for domestic messaging rather than operational testing or hostile intent. However, analysts noted increased unpredictability in regional military conduct and recommended continued monitoring. No injuries occurred, no ordnance was deployed, and no weapons systems progressed beyond tracking posture. Despite the lack of physical confrontation, the event served as a reminder of the narrow margin separating routine intercepts from escalation. The carrier strike group continued operations without deviation, and the incident was formally recorded as part of ongoing regional security tracking and readiness evaluation. Dawn rises over the Caribbean Sea as the USS Gerald R. Ford moves steadily through calm waters. The carrier proceeds on routine operations, flight deck crews working through standard procedures with no indication of approaching complications. The first sign of activity appears as two fast-moving aircraft emerge on the horizon. They fly low and fast, with no identification broadcast and no radio transmission. As they close distance, they are confirmed as Venezuelan K-8W attack jets. The aircraft conduct a low and aggressive pass across the bow of the carrier. Although the maneuver is clearly intentional and designed to provoke a reaction, the USS Gerald R. Ford maintains course and speed. The ship does not alter heading and does not issue a defensive posture beyond internal tracking and monitoring. From the bridge, the command decision remains consistent. Maintain discipline and observe. Inside the Combat Information Center, radar and infrared systems confirm that the Venezuelan aircraft are unarmed. The assessment indicates the maneuver is not part of an attack profile, but rather a demonstration or signaling action. Still, such behavior in international airspace carries significant risk. A miscalculation could escalate the situation rapidly. At 6:21 a.m., the initial aircraft begin to withdraw. However, two additional radar tracks appear almost immediately. Another Venezuelan flight closing from altitude with increasing speed. 4 aircraft are now confirmed in the area. In response, two F/-18 E Super Hornets launch from the carrier. The launch is carried out with standard precision and without urgency. Their objective is to intercept, identify, and prevent escalation. The Hornets reach altitude and make radar and visual contact. communication is attempted, and the aircraft are again identified as Venezuelan K-8W platforms. The foreign aircraft respond with a non-compliant transmission claiming the U.S. force is operating inside Venezuelan territorial airspace. Paul.